Happy Sunday and welcome into the Football Recruiting Report with Otis Kirk. Otis, a big announcement this morning. Ryan Silverfield, the new head coach of the Razorbacks.
Yeah, finally they got a coach. Nobody will be messaging me. Now they're messaging griping about the hire, but they've been wearing me out for a week about who was going to be named the coach and stuff. And then when somebody erroneously reported that it was going to be Goshen, Alex Ghost, I got ripped then because he was never. He never said Alex never said he was taking the job and all that goes. But anyway, whatever. Yeah, Ryan Silverfield is the coach. He beat Arkansas this year. You know, I in my story, if anybody hasn't read it, which I'm sure a lot of people haven't missed much, but I will say that I find it interesting that last year, searching for a basketball coach, well, at the end he searched for a basketball coach. I'm talking about women's basketball. Oral Roberts with music beat Mike Neighbors. Hunter hired Kelsey Music. This year, he watched Memphis beat Sam Pittman. He goes and hires Ryan Silverfield.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if there's, I got to believe there may be some connection there.
Yeah.
You know, I remember that because he talked about, he watched ORU and it beat Arkansas and he was impressed. And then so he went and hired her. It turned out it looks like maybe a pretty good hire. There was a lot of doubt at first. And I know she hadn't played an SEC team, but they were picked last in the conference. I think they won all the games but one. I know they played today. But she's impressed me. I actually watched one or two of their games. But getting back to football, which I know I'm on here talking about women's basketball, but Silverfield did beat Arkansas, and I'm just wondering if that didn't play into Hunter's choice, you know. But he has beaten South Florida each time head to head. Couple of things. In 2021, he beat Mississippi State, too. So Arkansas wasn't the only SEC team. He was 50-25 at Memphis, won 11 games last season, 8 games this year, was 8-1 at one point this year. It looked like he was headed but before this year, he'd gone 10-3, 11-2. And when they were 8-1, it looked like they lost to UAB with an interim coach. That was a shocker with Alex Mortensen. But it looked like they were going to be in for another double-digit win season, but they didn't. But, you know, I mean, who knows look, people are talking about a bad hire. We don't know how the hire will turn out.
Right, until next season.
I mean, it could be a good one, it could be a bad one. I will say this. People kept talking about he's going to be a big-name coach. I don't know of any big names out there that were available other than Lane Kiffin. He was never coming to Arkansas. I mean, I was told by a very good source that they did a courtesy interview with Gus Malzahn, John Gruden, and Jimbo Fisher. But those were courtesy interviews and nothing more. So they were never going to hire those people. So, but as far as big name splash hires, I don't know who was available because Lane wasn't coming here. The best one was James Franklin. Now he was a splash hire, big time hire in my book. I know some would disagree with that, but I know the man. He's a great coach. But the lack of medical facility closer than Little Rock really hurt their chance. Well, basically that and a few other things, him being closer to a school he knows, Virginia Tech, to his home and where he's familiar with that. But those things killed the U of A with James Franklin. But he did talk to the U of A. He did. I think they talked to him twice, if I'm not mistaken. But Franklin would have been a splash hire, but Kiffin wasn't coming here. So I don't know who else people were. I know there were some reports that Gruden had been hired. Gruden was never the hire, never going to be the coach at Arkansas. And, how long would that email of stuff held up in recruiting that he got fired for in the NFL? That would have killed him in recruiting. They were never going to hire John Gruden. That was just a false report. I'm not knocking anybody's information, but I've been ripped for a week on there, and I'm just telling you, I know what I'm talking about. And I got sloppy saying that they didn't interview Ryan when they had, because my source told me he didn't think he was interested. He said he didn't think he was interested because if Auburn, Ole Miss, or Florida offered him, he wouldn't come to Arkansas. I took my source said he probably wouldn't be interested to say he didn't interview. So I got sloppy there. But other than that, I've been spot on this whole thing. And and I took ownership of that being sloppy with he did an interview. That's what assuming will do to us. We know what assuming will do, and that's what he did to me. But other than that, we'll see how the hire turns out. I do know that Reed Bauer, the punter who left Arkansas and punted for Memphis for one season, was just elated with the hire. He thinks it's a great hire for Arkansas. I don't know.
There have been a few good tweets out there that are optimistic about this hire.
For him. And some other people have, Anthony Switzer, who played for Arkansas last year, the 1 year, come up from Utah State, I believe it was. He played 2 years at Arkansas State, went to Utah State for a couple of, then came to Arkansas. He says he's a great coach. So, Switzer knows him. He's from Marion over there. Anthony is probably recruited by the guy or something. So, he knows him. And, he says it's a great hire. So, I mean, these are people that know him. That's what they're saying. I'm not saying it's a great hire. I'm not saying it's a great hire, bad hire, whatever. I don't know. I just know that it was one of the names that I had in the very first story that I did on this coaching search. He was one of the names. I never said or never was told that that's who they were going to hire. I never was. And, and so, but it is, we'll see. But I hope fans, if nothing else, I do hope they give him a chance. I mean, why not? He's the coach. Nothing's going to change that. And you might as well get on board and give the man a chance. Everybody deserves a chance. And if it doesn't work out, then it's not going to work out. But I'll be honest with you. Outside of Kiffin and Franklin, I don't know who they could have hired. Well, Rhett Lashley, that was one, but he took his name out. But other than those 3 coaches, I don't know who they could have hired. There wouldn't have been a roll of the dice. Mm-hmm. All of them. You take Rhett, Franklin, and Kiffin out of the mix. I don't know who they could have hired. It wouldn't be a roll of the dice. I mean, it could go either way. Mm-hmm. Matt Campbell could go either way. All those coaches, it could go either way. So, now he's not going to have much time on recruiting. They've got 13 commitments. Signing day is Wednesday through Friday, the early signing period. So he's only got a few days here to make a few hours to make hay in recruiting. Try to hold on to all those, or a lot of them, and maybe I don't know who all. I haven't had time to check his Memphis commitments. Maybe there's somebody in Memphis that he could flip over to Arkansas. Mm-hmm. So he's gonna he'll get some Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, or Wednesday. I'm sure some of these kids, they've stuck with Arkansas this long. I'm sure they'll stick with them, and I hope they do. I hope they give this. Like I said, I just hope everybody gives this man a chance. I don't know him, so I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, he's a great guy." I don't know him. Never met the guy, but I just know that he deserves a chance, just like anybody else. And as far as it being a Grand Slam hire, nobody that we're going to hire would have been. Yeah. Golich wasn't going to be a Grand Slam hire. Matt Campbell would not have been a Grand Slam hire. I just don't know. The coach at North Texas wouldn't have been a Grand Slam hire. I just don't know who was going to be a Grand Slam hire. There wasn't. I didn't see one out there. And so, the coach, he's here, or he's going to be here. He had a meeting at 11 o'clock this morning, by the way. It's why I felt comfortable going with that story. And that is the first story that I've written saying somebody had been hired. I went with it because I was told by a source in Memphis that he told the team at 11 a.m. that he was coming to Arkansas. Mm-hmm. So at that point, there's no return. There's no return for him, and that's why I was confident to go with the story a little after. Well, it took me a while to finish writing. I was already working on it, but I published it. But it's just it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. I know some people are mad right now. I get it, but as I've told a lot of them when because I've gotten bombarded for a week now, 2 weeks, about 2 or 3 weeks about the coaches. And then this morning I'm getting bombarded, people disappointed in the hire. They said they thought it was going to be a splash hire. And I said, I said, you didn't get any of that from me. I never said it'd be a splash hire. I didn't put those names out there that like Gruden was going to be hired. It was, like I said, I just named the 3 coaches I would consider somewhat a splash hire. And I mean, I know Rhett Lashley, and I think he's a very good coach, but would he have been a splash hire? We don't know how he'd do in the SEC. Right. We don't know. I think he'd do well. I'll say this. I'm not knocking Rhett in any way. I think he'd do well. But till you coach in the SEC, everybody thought Brett Bielema who dominated the Big Ten would do well in the SEC. The SEC is a different animal. It just is.
Yes.
Franklin had been at Vanderbilt and won. That's why I was comfortable saying that. And then Kiffin has been in the SEC and won. Right. Rhett hadn't. But I think I'm 90% sure Rhett would be fine. But to you coach in the SEC as a head coach, I know he's been a coordinator, but to you coach as a head coach, it's a different animal. That SEC is a completely different animal. It just is.
Well, with Silverfield's background of offensive line, like that's really what his focus has been. Does this kind of feel like a similar hire to Pittman, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, something else too. I forgot to mention. I don't think I did. He's been with the Detroit Lions and Minnesota Vikings too. So he's coached some offensive line. He can coach some defensive line. Some at one of those. I believe it's Minnesota. He coached the offensive line for a year or two. I think the offensive line part of it. He comes over. The difference, and Sam was an offensive line coach too. We know that. But the difference in him and Sam, Ryan. Who I like Sam, but Ryan had head coaching experience, whereas Sam had not. He'd been a head coach at junior college years ago for 1 year. So Ryan Silverfield does have a head coaching experience. Took over for Mike Norvell, who I know, and went to Florida State, and took over for the 2019 Cotton Bowl, lost to James Franklin and Penn State in the Cotton Bowl, and after the 19th season, then he started out on his own team in 2020 on. He did coach the one game in 19 against James Franklin and Penn State. But yeah, being an offensive line coach, that I think listen, I've talked to offensive linemen since Pittman was hired, and they love the fact that there's an offensive line coach being the coach. They kept saying, well, it's usually a quarterback or a receiver or running back or something gets the job. Offensive name guy or even a defensive name person, but the offensive line, they say that means he won't neglect the offensive line, and I think that's safe to say he won't. They had a pretty good offensive line at Memphis this season.
But Arkansas's weakness right now.
I covered the Arkansas.
Arkansas's weakness right now is their defense. So bringing in a guy who's more offensive-minded, do you think that'll concern the program or anything like that? Because I know it'll be a very different program next year. There's going to be a lot of new recruits, a lot of changeover, but still the defense has been the constant weakness.
Yeah, I think I saw them play. Obviously, I covered the Arkansas-Memphis game, and I saw that game. And then I saw them play against another game or two. I don't remember who it was. Games run together, and I didn't sit and watch the whole game, but I watched bits and pieces of it, and I thought his offensive line was pretty good, but the team played hard for him. And I will say this, I think it's evident that the team doesn't get down when they get behind and give up, because Arkansas was way up on them in that game, and they came back in the second half and took the fight to Arkansas. They didn't come out, this is an SEC team, come out with their heads down in the second half, and we're beat, we're going to get embarrassed. You didn't see any of that. They came out with their heads up, played their butts off in the second half, and beat Arkansas, and somebody say they got lucky. Yeah, when Mike Washington fumbled down there inside the 10, yeah, they did get lucky. But hey, good luck is better than bad luck. Yep. I think Bobby Petrino and Sam Pittman had their share of bad luck this season. So I will take good luck over bad luck anytime. Luck's always involved. But with Arkansas, I think a lot of it was bad luck. And yeah, they brought some of it on themselves. They did. But a lot of it was bad luck. And Memphis seemed to have some good luck in that game. So you got good luck and bad luck, and I'll take the good anytime. That's the way I look at it, because you can say anybody's lucky, but was he good? Was he lucky good way, or lucky in a bad, or lucky bad in a bad way? Yep. And it's a lot better to be in a good way.
Well, Arkansas is welcoming Ryan Silverfield as the new head hog for the football program. Otis, thanks so much for taking the time. I know it's a busy Sunday. Thanks so much. We really appreciate it.